All right, we are live. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
That always gets
I'm
the
like,
person.
ooh, that's my line. That's my line.
There's a pause, and I'm like, why is she quiet? And then all of a sudden, hello. All right, well, that's a great way to start. Okay, so we're gonna do Q&A. So first, we will answer the Patreon questions, and then I will post a link to whoever wants to come up and talk to me live on air. But you have to be a YouTube member to be able to see that link. I'll post it in the community tab. Okay. So first, we answer Patreon questions. So if you want us to answer your questions, you could become a patron. Link in the description. What we do is that we post a link to the stream a day ahead of the Q&A, and then under the post on Patreon, people post their questions, and me and Susanna answer them. Then once we're done with that, I'll post a link to our YouTube members on the community tab or on our YouTube channel for people who want to come up and talk to me live on air. Okay. So again, patrons, there's two benefits. Patrons post to send their questions and we answer them. YouTube members come and ask us live question on if anybody is interested today. We changed the scheduling a little bit today because of some issues, but so that some people get confused about that. So we might not have any people that might want to come up today, but that's fine. I'll just post it just in case. I see
Yeah, well,
D
we
here.
usually do the show on Thursday, but we were thinking of moving it to Wednesday. So people should let us know like what works best for them in our live
Well, you're
audience.
saying it based on your time because it's Friday or Thursday for other people. But anyways, like we could post a poll, um, and then we'll see if people are happy with it. Or I could just look at the YouTube analytics and see what time works better. So I see Dolly in the live chat. I see D. I see Shriyash. I see the Roaring Man. Hi guys. All right, so we should start answering the questions right now.
Yeah. Okay, so the first question we'll take is from D. D is asking, I heard that Israel is dissolving its parliament and holding new elections. What is your understanding of the situation and why it happened? Well, they're having a vote, I think, today, or maybe it probably already happened at this point. And
Let's say what today is because this gets clipped.
Oh, okay. So today is Wednesday, June 22nd. All the news I was watching on this said that it was happening on Wednesday. Now it's Wednesday in North America. I don't know if that means Wednesday in here or over there, because in that case, that would already passed. Either way, they were holding a vote to see if they were going to do a dissolution of the Knesset.
I think it's already
And
happening. It's already done. That's
it's
what I
already
heard.
done. Is it dissolved?
That's what I heard. I mean,
Okay,
if
it's
it's
already
not,
done.
it was a sure thing. So there's that.
Okay. um and yeah, so this means that this would be the fifth cycle of elections in 3 years in Israel, which sounds emotionally and mentally exhausting on so many different levels.
Israel's
um
politics is broken. So like this is so they're spending more time on election than doing
Governing.
governing. But also for a country like Israel, which needs to have an international, like more than most countries, it needs to have a consistent face to the international world, like especially to the US, and right now especially to, I don't know, Saudi Arabia, or to, to the other Arab Gulf countries, or to Turkey right now. Like when it comes to how important it is for people to see some consistency and some stability, Israel needs that more than most countries at the moment, especially with the GCPOA, like seeming like it's not going to happen. We don't know, right? So that's what, so there's not going to be any limitations on Iran's nuclear ambitions. So, and United States doesn't have the same appetite as before to be present in the Middle East. So it's going to be up to Israel and the gangs being Gulf Arab countries and Turkey, to to create some stability in the region. We don't like every, Israel changes we have no idea who's going to be in power. Netanyahu might be back in power by October. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. October might be the next elections. We don't know when the next elections are going to be. But anyway, so this is like, why is Israel's politics like this? Why can't you have some more stability? See, this is also a bad rep for democracy, because a lot of people with dictators like, is this what you want? Is this what you want? Like, at least we have the same person all the time that everybody could be like, well, this is who you're dealing with. Well, when we're talking to your country, we don't know who we're dealing with. But
well, this is more to do with like the structure of the Knesset and having to form coalition governments than necessarily democracy. Because it's obviously a very different structure than what I have here in the United States. And from the outside, I'm like, this seems stressful. This seems like it doesn't work half the time. And it would definitely not last. It would not survive here. Let me say that.
Well, in defense, in defense of democracy, I would say that, yes, with non-democratic models, you do get consistency. You get consistent oppression. That's what you get. That's how you get consistent brutality, and you get consistent human rights violations. So if you want consistency, that's the type of consistency you get. So Dolly is asking, so Netanyahu won? Well, I mean, well, not yet, but this was a win for him, because right now the most popular party is his party, which is the Likud party. Right, so if there is another election, all the polls kind of suggest that they're going to be the ones ahead of everybody else. The question is, would they have a majority or not? So, by the way, this party, this coalition that just got broken down, if you guys watched us, you would see from the very beginning we told you guys that this is like being held by like duct tape. Right? Like, well, no, actually, duct
tape is strong. It was more like floss, like 50-year-old floss.
yes, no insult to duct tape. Okay, no, so this was not that. Yeah, but it was predicted to break apart very easily, because it had. But it's such a shame, because it was a beautiful coalition. It had left, it had right, it had Arab in it, and like the taboo of building coalitions with Arab parties was broken for the first time in Israeli's history.
It wasn't popular, but it was broken.
It was broken. Now it's like not unquestionable. Okay, so that was good. But the thing is that coalition had nothing to agree on except we hate Netanyahu. Okay, it had nothing else in common. And if that was strong enough, it would have kept this coalition together, okay? But Likud part, by the way, Likud also would always win if they didn't have Netanyahu. Netanyahu is a curse to everybody. Netanyahu is a curse Netanyahu is not just a curse to the world. Netanyahu is not just a curse to Israel. Netanyahu, it's a curse to even his own party, right? Netanyahu is a curse to the Likud party, because if Likud party didn't have Netanyahu, they will always dominate Israeli politics. The only thing that is making people like, maybe we should consider some other party, is the fact that you have Netanyahu. Okay, but anyways, so they use a technicality in the voting process for something that is so popular that everybody would vote on. So, which is recognizing the legality of Jewish people in the settlements, right? Which is so bizarre that, in the West Bank. But the thing is that's how, the fact that is something that is not controversial, that everybody vote for, says a lot about Israeli politics, because that should be the only thing that everybody disagrees on. But but now in Israeli politics, it's something that everybody, obviously, we agree on this, right? So they were supposed to vote for that. And the party that supports this the most, I mean, everybody supports this, but they were like, we're not going to vote for it. And apparently that just broke the entire system. So the coalition that they created was so fragile by holding back vote on something that would automatically just be renewed all the time. They just managed to break the coalition. So they managed to break the Likud party, or Netanyahu managed to break the coalition by just a technicality. A lot of people are like, oh my God, so this is a Palestinian cause and whatever broke the coalition. No, they would have used anything that had a due date and required anything important that required a positive vote, they could have used anything to just withhold their votes to just break the party, right? Because this needs to be approved, and they just are like, we're not gonna. And it just
my
shows how
understanding
dirty. Yeah.
is that it has less to do with that actual issue itself, and more that issue was just the final straw.
Yes. Yes. They also use other tactics. They kind of harassed right-leaning members of the coalition. They were doing fear tactics against some of the head of the other right-leaning parties. They heckled, like they were going after the children. Like Netanyahu's followers were encouraged to go harass certain politicians from the right-leaning part of the coalition. So much as like they went and chased the children of the politician in their school and stuff. Like,
whoa.
Yeah, it was like, it's so dirty. I don't know, like
no bueno.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll see how that goes out. That pans
out. This is a very inconvenient timing right now because the JCPOA is like, but in defense of so the counter narrative from some Israelis is like, don't worry about the international front and Iran situation, because we might have our own internal struggles over politics, okay? But when it comes to Iran and dealing with the United States and the Abrahamic Accord and our being allied with, I don't know, Saudi Arabia, or like working with Turkey and the other Gulf Arab countries and everybody else, we are on that. We are not disagreeing. So even though our politics goes up and down internally, on that we have a united front. And I think I don't know how, we'll see how true that is, because Netanyahu is willing to throw everything under the bus for his own power, including Israel itself, right? So if Netanyahu could threaten the entirety of the existence of Israel just to make sure that he is in power, I think he would do it. So, but the messaging is that we're all united on that front, and no matter who's in charge, we will have the same message, and the world doesn't have to worry about our consistency on that front. So there's that.
Okay, so the next patron question is from Higgs Boson, asking, say China and Taiwan reunited with the Republic of China as the legitimate China, say that there would manage to be some sort of coup of the CCP, and it becomes a democracy. What if the KMT comes to power? So some background for those who don't know all these distinctions. In China's Civil War, there was the CCP, there was the Communist Party, and there was the Nationalist Party. And the acronym for the Nationalist Party is KMT. I can't pronounce its full name correctly, so I'm just gonna call it the KMT. Basically, there was a lot of fighting. They were fighting with each other. They were fighting with the Japanese, all this stuff. Eventually, the communists took over so much power that the Nationalist Party had to go flee to Taiwan, and they went to take over Taiwan. But ever since, both of these governments, both of these parties have claimed legitimate authority over the entirety of mainland China and the island known as Taiwan. So this hypothetical is saying, okay, what if the mainland China and the island of Taiwan reunited under one government, with the government that ruled Taiwan as the government of all of this now reunited China?
Sorry, who unites with Taiwan's? Who's this? Sorry, I forgot. I was like thinking.
So the government that originally fled to Taiwan and then was a dictatorship of Taiwan, and then
I know that part. I know that part. Wait,
that's the ROC. That is the country known as the ROC. So what if mainland and Taiwan reunited not as the People's Republic of China, but reunited as the Republic of China?
Okay, but which group of people are going to unite with that? Like, what's this force?
No. We're not there yet. So they reunite as the Republic of China. Okay, so this is theoretically a democratic government now, and this managed to happen somehow. Okay, this hypothetical
Yeah, but I
does
don't
not detail
understand.
how.
This
Hypothetical, this question that they're asking us doesn't detail how. They just say that there manages to be some sort of coup of the
Okay,
CCP.
can you listen to my question before you answer it? Okay, so one side is Taiwan. Who's on the other side?
The Communist Party of China.
Well, is it the CCP?
Yes, they get
But-
ousted by the ROC
Okay.
in this
No,
hypothetical.
Okay, hold on. I'm not. My question is not clear. I'm just gonna look for it. But go on. Keep talking.
So the CCP gets ousted by the ROC. The ROC institutes a democratic government. Okay. So that's the hypothetical. This question is confusing because there's hypotheticals upon hypotheticals. So say that this happens.
This
Okay.
doesn't make any sense. Because the ROC is Taiwan. Okay.
Yes.
So there's nobody on the other side to unite with.
That
So
doesn't
ROC
matter to this question. They're just saying, okay,
So-
let's say that this happened.
Yeah, but I still don't understand what's happening. The CCP is like there's a coup. We're removing the CCP. Okay.
Yes.
What is this opposition force that has managed to remove the CCP for the ROC to unite with? I know this is hypothetical, but the hypothetical needs to be a full story for us to even consider it, right?
The opposition is the ROC. They're
No,
the
the
ones that come
ROC.
in and
No,
depose.
okay. The ROC needs to unite with an opposition force within the Chinese politics. It cannot just come and take over. It just cannot just come and like, oh, we're taking. So it's not, because this is not if this is what the hypothetical is. By the way, none of this makes any sense. We're just doing hypotheticals, okay? But none of this is ever going to happen, obviously.
No.
But this is like, for you not to have an opposition force within China to take down the CCP, for the ROC to unite with, you're suggesting that this is an invasion. This is not like a united force that is like uniting China. This would be an invasion of the entirety of China by the ROC. You need to identify an opposition group within China for the ROC to unite with.
Okay, you're adding layers to the hypothetical?
I mean, well, if we want to consider hypothetical, like, we have to consider it fully. Okay, but go on. So
Okay, so without you're adding extra layers, extra flavor, okay, to this spicy pizza. Okay, so let's take some of those toppings off and just follow what the question asks. Okay. So say China and Taiwan are reunited with the ROC now becoming the legitimate ruler of all of China, the legitimate ruler of all of China. And say this managed to happen through some sort of coup of the CCP.
Yeah,
and
the
then
KMT.
this new reunited country becomes a democracy. What if the nationalist KMT party comes to power?
Oh, there you go. Well,
that's the
what
question.
you mean. Okay, so there you go. The KMT would be the one that the ROC will unite with. That's what we're saying.
No, because the KMT is already part of the ROC. They're not. It's not uniting with them. The ROC is the name of the government of Taiwan. The KMT is a Taiwanese political party.
Oh, okay. So sorry. I said I don't know these parties. I thought the KMT was a political party in China. Do we have any other? What are the other political parties in China other than the CCP? Do we have any? Is it just one political? Do we even have pretend political parties other than the CCP?
I think there might be a few pretend parties.
Okay, so let's look at one of them. The 8 Chinese Democratic parties, the Revolutionary Committee of China's. Okay, so, one of those. Yeah, okay. We could go with one of those. I think there are 8. Yeah, people are
I was watching
8.
some videos about the KMT earlier today, so actually, no, I'm not going to get into those details because I'll just get I'll confuse everyone. So, anyways, now that we've established what this question is, so the question is, what if the KMT comes to power? Now, this part of what's flavoring this question is the history of the KMT, which was a dictatorship, brutal, deadly, terrifying dictatorship for almost like 50 years in Taiwan that actually had to gradually liberalize and fade away into the flourishing democracy that we see today in Taiwan. And the KMT is still a party in Taiwan, but it's very different than what used to be responsible for what's known as the White Terror. So I think, you know, when people talk about like, oh, the KMT coming to power in a reunited China, they think of one, the brutality of what the KMT did when they were still in control of regions of China. And then also the brutality that they enacted when they had control solely of Taiwan. And so when it's like when they come, if they came to power, would there be some sort of resurgence of that? Would there be would they go back to their Leninist inspired ways of purging people from their parties, you know, or would they be kind of more the new democratic Taiwanese?
Who the hell knows?
KMT.
You're talking about the situation where Taiwan is taking over, like the world is upside down. Eh? Like I mean, if your hypothetical is breaking the current situation by such a degree, you know what I mean? We might as well, like, I don't know, the KMT might even be led by lizard people by that point. You know, like
What?
no, I mean, like this is reality, okay? And your hypothetical has broken the like is so far away from the real world where like, oh, what would KMT be like?
It took us 5 minutes to establish what the hypothetical was.
No, I'm just saying like it's so different from reality that the KMT, what the nature of KMT would be such a minor thing compared to how bigger things have changed in the world, right? Like I'm wondering, how has the world politics broken to such a degree? I'm wondering what's going on in the US by this point. I'm wondering what's going on in Japan right by this point, because what happened in the planet that led to the situation where the CCP has fallen, you know what I mean? And and Taiwan has taken over all of China. Like I wouldn't be worried about the nature of KMT. I was like, what has so fundamentally changed about the nature of the world that we live in that became a reality? Like that would be one of the last things on my list of trying to understand is the nature of the KMT. There might be no KMT. Like it seemed like there wouldn't be a KMT at that point. You know what I mean? Like we were like, hey, have we been invaded by aliens or something? like I don't know. Like how is that even possible? I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying? Like this is like, because you know when something so fundamental changes about the world as we understand it, the minor things around it has probably changed even more significantly. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Oh, we got a donation. Thank you, Secular Sakai.
Yes. Wait, that's what I wanted to show. Secular Sakai donated $5. Thank you so much, Secular Sakai.
Thank you. Well, this question was asked by Higgs Boson, so if you want to see any clarifications in the live chat, because he's still there.
Well, let me browse quickly. Earlier, he was just explaining what his question was. When we were trying to navigate what this hypothetical even entails.
CCP is there's a coup d'etat and by CP. Okay, so here's the thing: when if you're writing a story like this, you have to give more details. Who has done the coup? Okay, did the KMT just somehow infiltrate China and they were responsible for doing the coup themselves, or somebody else did the coup and KMT is like surprise, oh, I can't swear. Right, so just showed up and like, oh, there was a coup, and now we're just going to inherit the coup, even though we didn't do the coup. It really depends on who did the coup, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah. I mean, you're telling me in the live chat, don't think about the process, just give us what the conclusion would be. Well, I mean, the way it happened really will affect about what the conclusions are. Like, obviously, the process determines has a huge effect on the outcome. So, who did the coup? I want to know who did the coup. Anyways,
you're like, give me the full story. Tell me a story.
Yeah. If you want me to guess, need the full story.
Okay, so let's move on. Nope, go ahead.
Somebody is saying, hold on. Some people are saying CCP falling isn't too far off. When Chinese people get more prosperous, they might demand more freedoms and might be a revolution for a democracy. Okay, this is a black swan event. When Chinese people demand more rights, okay, the most likely outcome is pressuring CCP and maybe getting more rights. So reforms, okay, that's the most likely result, okay. But a revolution for democracy, even if it happens, it's not going to topple CCP. It might Chinese economy might suffer in a few, with or without a revolution. It might weaken the CCP, but toppling of CCP doesn't look likely. I'm not saying it's impossible. There's always black swan events, but there's nothing right now. There's nothing within the power of Chinese people that could bring down the CCP. They don't have that power, no matter how upset, how much they come and protest. This seems extremely unlikely.
Okay, so in Higgs boson's scenario, he's saying that the Japanese did the coup.
Oh my God!
Which in that case,
okay.
No!
What? Okay, this is
that is the last thing anyone needs. We don't need to go back in that direction. I would.
Wait, are they putting babe? Okay, never mind. I don't want to mention. Okay, so yeah, so last time that we didn't have a fun. Okay, but that's not gonna happen. So it's like the Japan is a different Japan right now. So last time they did that was not fun for anybody. Okay, but Japan's nature has changed so dramatically. So it's kind of like Germany. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to. If Germany is like going to war, like helping maybe Ukraine or something, you don't have to be like, oh my God, the Germans are at it again. Like obviously this is a different Germany. So Japan is also a different Japan, right? But
It's still making me real nervous, and let me tell you that much. There would be millions upon millions of people, hundreds of millions of people worldwide who would just brains ejected. Like I just can't. Like no one. It would not be recognized.
Higgs boson, your hypotheticals are raising more questions. Okay, I cannot answer this. Like, why did the Japanese do this? How did they do this? What was the reaction of the rest of the world for the Japanese people to just do this, to just violate international laws? Okay, and also, how come they went and did a coup and the Taiwanese managed to come and take power? Like, how does this happen? Okay, actually just give me an idea. Okay, so let's say this could be a good story, like for Japanese to have done something like this. China must have done something so significant that has threatened the entire planet. Okay, and Japan wouldn't do that by itself. Oh my God, my dogs are here. Japan wouldn't do that by itself. Japan wouldn't go to war by itself. Japan has a constitution that makes it illegal for it to do something like this. This is basically declaring war on China, declaring war on the world's second largest democracy. Japan is going into China and doing this without the help of the United States and all the other democratic countries. Why would they do that? Obviously, this wouldn't be done alone. And what has China done to justify something like this? All of these are pieces of the puzzle that you need to fill us in for us to come up with this needs, like China, for something like this to happen, China must have gone insane. Like CCP must have gone insane for Japan and its allies to have seen this as. Actually, I do think, like, if, for example, let's say something happens, right, and the CCP goes insane and becomes a threat to the entire world. None of this will ever happen, right? I do think that if then Japan, United States, Europe, South Korea, and everybody unites to try to take the CCP down, I do think that one place to look at for an alternative government would be Taiwan. By the way, this is kind of a joke in Taiwan, the claim that they have over the entirety of China, because nobody takes that seriously, right? Like, tiny land is like, all of China is ours. But if you actually go to Taiwan, listen to some comedians, the fact that this is still, because a lot of Taiwanese don't know that this is still there. Like a lot of young Taiwanese people don't know that their own constitution has a claim over the entirety of China. So they make the fact when they find that out, they make fun of it because it's a ridiculous claim, right? Anyways.
And if you guys do not know what Japan did to China during World War II, I encourage you guys to look it up because not enough people know about this. And it is some of the worst things, human rights abuses and crimes I have ever heard of. And like no one knows about it because the Nazis get all the attention. But the suffering of what the Chinese went through under the Japanese is well deserved and worthy of our attention.
Well, not just the Chinese, almost everybody in that neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
So this is why some Chinese, Korean, Filipino older people, where they do remember these things, they're kind of racist against Japanese.
And not kind of.
Yeah, very...
not kind of.
Yeah.
Like not kind of.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it doesn't justify the racism against Japanese people at all. Okay, Japan.
Of course not.
Even. Yeah, I just want to, for people who are too dumb to understand that, I just want to mention, as bad as the human rights violations were, like they were like the worst that the humanity has to offer. Okay, some of the worst. Okay, even the worst human rights violations that is done by a certain group of people, it's always done by a fringe minority of the people of that population. So even if I say, oh, Japan today is different, well, the Japanese people back then were also different. Like these crimes, as horrific as they were not done by the entirety of the Japanese people. So even it doesn't justify to be anti-Japanese now, but it doesn't even justify for you to be anti-Japanese even back then, right? So there's that.
Okay. Anyways, let's go to the next patron question. So, for the next patron question, wait.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to highlight Oxymoron saying even Koreans are racist towards Japanese. Yeah, everybody in that neighborhood. No, not everybody. Sorry, like every country in that neighborhood has, especially in the older generation, has some racist against the Japanese. However, things are getting better. The younger generation is less racist towards each other in that neighborhood. But anyway, sorry, I distracted. You were trying to read this. Next question.
Okay, next question is from D. She's asking, 3 lawyers and 2 civil rights activists recently received prison sentences for suing Iranian officials over their response to the pandemic, such as YouTube. These are things that the Iranian government did. Okay.
These are not our views. Please wait. You have to clarify to other people why you're saying that. This is like not our views, so please don't give us a strike. We're just reading other people's views, and we disavow. Okay, go on.
Okay. So they recently received prison sentences for suing Iranian officials over their response to the pandemic, such as banning vaccines from the West, reporting false numbers of deaths and infections, and mismanaging the response. What can you tell us about this? Armin, are you familiar with this at all?
Yes. But okay, so they did not sue the Iranian government. They
sued Khamenei.
No. They were on their way. Sorry, my dogs are playing with each other. They were on their way. They were about to. They were stopped and put in prison before they actually managed to file anything. Sorry, my dog. Hold on. I'm gonna bring one. My dogs are fighting each other. I'm gonna bring one of them into this section so that the other ones cannot fight. Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's worth it.
Yes. So yes, unfortunately they were okay. So these were some very, very, very brave lawyers. Okay, so they knew they were suing Khamenei. Yeah, exactly. So Susanna actually made a good point. Okay, this is because it's actually kind of safe for Iranians like relatively more safe for Iranians to be just like, oh, we're suing the government, or we're like having issues with the government, especially Raisi's government. Okay, but it's another thing for them to go directly target Khamenei. Like these people, even though some of them were women, they had balls. Okay, they like seriously like they even if they weren't put in prison, they could have at least expected to lose their license to practice.
Yeah, one of these
like
guys has been banned from being a lawyer for 2 years.
Yeah. So they could have known that at least they could expect that, and they did it anyways, right? They were like banning vaccines to come to Iran for the dumbest reasons ever, because Khamenei said that these were a conspiracy to target the Iranian gene, and this was like these vaccines. That's why they couldn't be trusted. So. And he this is a man who keeps claiming that anything that goes wrong in the country is not his responsibility because he doesn't make decisions. Other people do. Okay. But then he single-handedly, without just decided to inflict this curse upon the entire country. Like, what happened to you saying like, oh, I just stay out of things? Then he, like, with that, no institution, the presidency, and not even the IRGC, nobody had said this. It was him, and his command became like had to be followed. Like nobody voted. Like he's not an elected official, and then he just says this, and everybody has to follow just because he said so. Like even the Constitution doesn't give him a right to like just make. I mean, it does actually. Never mind. But it's just like it just like for anybody who acts like Iran is a democracy, you have to realize that the person that the Constitution has determined to be above law, above everything, has just all of a sudden decided that Iranian people are not going to get certain vaccines. And then thousands of people die just because of this man's delusion over what the vaccines are about, right? And these lawyers were like, well, this is a sue-worthy action based on Iranians' own laws. Based on Iran's own laws, you could sue a person for causing so much, damage to the country. And they were just following the procedure. Like, we're just going to follow the procedures of what the Constitution allows us to do as lawyers. And that's what they did. And that's what they tried to do. They never they never got to file it. They never got the chance to just go. I might actually, you know what? I might actually make a 5-minute video about this to
That'd
show
be awesome.
how, yeah. I might want to make an edited 5-minute video about this.
Some background. So this comes from Radio Free Farda. But the 7 activists and lawyers who became known in Iran as the health defenders were arrested before they could file their legal challenge against the government and Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. They, less than a year later, following a trial held behind closed doors, a court in Tehran handed 5 of them prison terms ranging from 95 days to 4 years, according to their lawyer. The 5 were convicted on charges including spreading propaganda against the state and disrupting public order. And so part of it is that they accused them of some sort of conspiracy because this group would talk to each other on Clubhouse. So the group's lawyer told Radio Farda on June 21st,
which is a social media app.
Right? That the court had found that the group was guilty of, quote, collusion against national security because they had created a closed discussion group on the social media forum Clubhouse. Clubhouse is like an app where you just share your audio and you can talk to each other. Quote, the court argued that their group on Clubhouse was secret and they didn't allow anyone else to enter the group, he said, adding that the court concluded that there was collusion to commit a crime. It's like, what, we can't have a private group? It's ridiculous. Earlier in this saga, a bunch of them were held in solitary confinement in Navabi prison. Just absolute denied access to their lawyers. Their lawyer was denied access to the court. Absolute just ridiculousness. Many news outlets are calling it a new low.
Yeah, so a lot of people have this misunderstanding that there is no, the legal system in Iran is just like willy-nilly. And so they're like, why is this a surprise? Of course it's like that. No, this is a new low. Like for example, the Iranian justice system actually works a lot of times, especially if it's not national security matters is not a part of the equation, right? Like you could, I don't know, if somebody does you wrong in Iran and you go to the justice system and you have a good lawyer, they will get you the right result. Like if something unfair has been done to you, and like illegal done to you, and you go complain about it, you will most of the time not like get a fair outcome out of the justice system, right? And even when it comes to national security matters, there are, when that happens, then you're screwed. You're not going to get a good result, but you still expect to be able to negotiate somehow using lawyers and using whatever legal framework the country has. There are some back and forth. There's some struggle. There's some like, okay, how much? I know I'm screwed, but can I be screwed like a little bit less, right? Using my lawyers, like can I like get like this many years instead of that many years? Can I not get tortured? Maybe like would I see doctors when I'm sick? Would I get like would I be able to have outside time? Maybe, like, you know what I mean? Like, and there's a framework for all of that. And then you have access to, you are given many times access to a lawyer. Sometimes you're not, but that standard is going down more and more. Like, for example, these are lawyers and you're treating them like this. They don't even have the access that they should have to their lawyers now. The access that the law gives them, like, and also a lot of other national security related arrests. Sometimes you lose access to your own lawyers, the access that you should be having according to Iranians' own laws, right? So and as bad as things were, this is like unbelievable. Like the fact that they're getting prison sentences over something that was. So, for example, if you go like, I'm going to take that Khamenei, okay? So you could be like, if you get arrested and go to jail, that was according to Iranian laws. Okay, you're in jail because I violated Iranian rule. It's an unfair law, but it was the law. Okay, but what these lawyers did, they basically did everything according to the letter, like legally, everything, the process, the filing, the complaints, and the claim in Iran is that you can complain to the officials. And sometimes they have these shows where Khamenei comes and listens, and there's this student comes and says, like, complains about things to him and criticizes him, and they publicize that on TV, right? But you can see that their voice is kind of shaky because they can't, even when they allow them to do that, it's such a scary thing to do. But anyways, like, they pretend like, oh, look, we take criticism here. Like, this is like, even Khamenei takes, oh my God, Khamenei, like, people and his followers, they're like, oh my God, he shouldn't be taking criticism. He's perfect, but he's so humble. He takes criticism. Okay. But you can see when it comes to a real, actual legal complaint, they have to come up with, and the fact that they use this clubhouse room excuse, that means that they had nothing. Like, they were desperately looking for something that they could mark as illegal. And these people were so clean. They were so clean that they had nothing. And they were like, oh, we saw a private clubhouse room on social media. Like, are you serious? Like, this is a joke. Just say that this is not legal. Just agree that what we're doing is not, we're just violating our own laws.
It's just retaliatory. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, there's so much I want to get into, but I think maybe we should just leave it there. I was reading a different story today that was really interesting about how the government said, oh, we're not going to allow any outside vaccines, so we're just going to produce our own. And then how that was such a failure because they gave a lot of the money to do that to departments and teams that had zero experience in developing vaccinations. So I was like, oh, more mismanagement. What a shocker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, another thing. Raisi just, oh my God. By the way, okay, so first of all, Iran's government's management on the whole pandemic was horrible, especially because of Khamenei's involvement in this. Okay, like they shot themselves in the foot by limiting vaccine imports because of Khamenei's delusions. Okay, and so many people died because of this mismanagement. And Raisi just recently came out, and you know what he said? He said the reason why they did so well in managing the pandemic, one of the reasons why they were so good at it is because the Basijis came and trained the doctors on how to deal with patients. So for people, who don't know, the Basijis are like the religious police, right? And he's saying like the religious police.
Oh, thank God, the Besieger here.
They're so good at like, and the mullahs and everybody, they're so good at dealing with people and managing people and taking care of them. And they at the time of need, they came to the hospitals, and Raisi said, I received calls from doctors, and they said to us that we learned from these people how to do how these people showed us the way, and that's how we did so good.
So freaking crazy.
It's a joke. The entire government, the entire system there is a freaking joke.
Yeah. I feel like if I take my shirt and I just
there we go.
I change the spelling a little bit, and I slap some glasses on him in honor of this news, we can say the Ayatollah Khamenei sucks.
Oh yeah, look, the Ayatollah sucks. Yeah.
Just put some glasses on him. It's fine.
let people know about that shirt, because that's a pretty epic shirt. Like,
I just got this shirt recently, and this shirt is literally from 1979. I'm so freaking psyched.
I would actually, if I would 1970, this shirt was made right after the revolution, basically. So I wouldn't wear that. I would like frame that or something. This is like.
Yeah, I'm only gonna wear it on occasion, light wear.
This is part of history.
Yeah.
This shirt was made right after the revolution.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I found it because I have like an affection for like vintage, really cheesy touristy shirts, and I thought it would be so cool if I could find like a tourist, like pre-revolution, like Iranian shirt. I couldn't find any, but I ended up finding this instead.
Oh, by the way, like somebody in live chat saying, is that depicting Muhammad? Guys, no. Like, I don't understand.
It literally says his name.
Yeah, first of all, why do people think Muhammad would wear a turban? The turban was not a thing back in Arabia back then. Like, I don't understand the pictures of Muhammad with a turban on. Yeah, anyways.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So let's go to some live chat questions.
Okay, not maybe they had turbans, but like the Iranian style puffy turban.
Yeah, mama. It's totally different.
Yeah, that's
like you can take a keffiyeh and then do the little tie.
Yeah, that would look like a turban. Yeah.
Yeah.
They had headgear, but I don't think like that, but not that. Anyways, yeah.
Anyways. So let's go to some live chat questions. The Roaring Man is asking, Susanna, when is he, I'm assuming referring to Armin, going to do a video on Hinduism and its purity culture? I think this is an excellent idea of something you should do, Hinduism and purity culture, because this is something we talk about a lot. It needs a lot more emphasis, I think. So I think
I have to find, once the stream is over, suggest certain verses in Hindu scripture for me to review. Comment under this video.
Yeah.
There's another Patreon question. Secular Sakai added a new question.
Oh wait, please highlight it. Oh, he added it on Patreon. Okay, let me go find it really quickly. Okay. So, in the meanwhile, Secular Sakai asked a question earlier in the live chat asking, at what size, aka total members, would you classify a small cult becoming a religion if we are only using size as the differentiating factor? Oh, this is difficult.
I don't think it's just the size that matters. I think it's the type of organization. It's like official recognition as a. I think official recognition as a religion. I think the type of sub institutions. I mean, technically, every religion is a cult, and every cult is a religion. It does depend on perception. I mean, wait, why am I talking, Susanna? You're the cult expert.
Yeah, so I think about cults in a slightly different way. I think of them as there are positive cults and there are negative cults. And what people normally say when they say, oh, that's a cult, they mean a destructive cult. They mean a destructive organization. But technically, there could be something that's considered a cult that is actually very positive to the people who are in it and is genuinely allows them to be creative, grow in themselves, is not restrictive, is not controlling. So the word cult in and of itself isn't that descriptive to me. I look at the ideology, I look at the behaviors of those involved. I look at, is there any consequences for the people to the people that leave? Is there retaliation against them, etc.? Or phobia, indoctrination, that kind of thing. So let's say that this is okay, small cult becoming a religion.
So I think popularity is what people usually think of when it comes to the difference, but I don't think popularity is measured only in numbers of followers. I think popularity could also be measured in level of recognition by outsiders, level of recognition by law, right?
I think
So, for
that's a big part
example,
of it, actually. I think that's the most important part of it, actually.
right?
So,
Yeah. Go on.
for example, think of actually one of the most important deciding factors is, does the IRS recognize that you're a religion? Like
Well, in the
with what
U.S.
happened with Scientology. See, this is kind of part of the problem with American tax law is it requires the IRS to become theologians. So basically Scientology blackmailed the IRS into giving them recognition as a religion, but that's a whole different story. Blackmail, extorted, more like extorted. Anyways, I think of the Jehovah's Witnesses as a really good example of making this transition. So I still definitely consider the Jehovah's Witnesses to be 100% a destructive, horribly abusive cult. But most people don't know this. Most people just think that they're a sect of Christianity. Most people just think, oh, they're just like a type of Christian that's a little bit more strict. They have kind of their own thing, you know. So that process of them going from a cult of personality to the cult of personality for the person that succeeded the original founder to then having denominations and branching out across America happened over like hundreds of years. And I think that's the process of becoming a religion. And at what point do other people assume that you're a religion, just like any other group, so to speak? At what point do people not identify you for your destructive practices? Because most people hear Jehovah's Witnesses and they're like, they're the annoying people that bring on my door all the time. They don't know about how deeply controlling and the thought reform that goes on within this organization. So at what point is your image whitewashed, in a sense, is kind of how I would measure when you become a religion versus a cult, so to speak. But these lines are like very blurry, and I've never thought about cults versus religions in terms of numbers. I don't think it is meaningful in any way to understand the differences or the evolution. In a way, I don't even think it's that important. It has more to do with how you're recognized from the outside.
Okay, so for example, the number of Yazidis is like 1 million to 1.5 million, right? So, and the number of Scientologists is like 3.5 million. So, but I think like Yazidis are more officially internationally recognized as a religion than Scientologists, I think. So I think Scientologists would give more of a cult vibe than Yazidis, even though they have lower, even though there are less Yazidis, I think.
I mean, they give more of a cult vibe on a variety of different levels.
Yeah, I think, like, for example, one reason my people are like, oh, the Yazidi religion, and Scientologists are like, is that religion? Or is it just a cult? I think it's because the Yazidis have it's not just the number of members, it's just also they have an ancient, long history, you know what I mean? So that's part of, so this is all about perception. I mean, technically, based on definitions, these are all cults, and these are all also religions, right? But we're just talking about the perception people have comes from number of members, legal recognition, and maybe how old they are, how far back they go, right? So all of these are part of the equation.
Yeah, I mean, really, like any group or basically any group or congregation could be called a cult. Is that group or congregation has a positive influence in these individuals' lives? Does it encourage criticism? Does it encourage critical thought? Does it teach these processes? Does it allow people to leave without consequence? Are people alienated afterwards, ostracized for leaving, disagreement, these kinds of things? These are what makes the difference between a positive and a negative cult.
Right.
And they're very important to learn about so that you can identify these patterns of behavior within the groups that you navigate, it's very important.
Oh yeah, D is saying I never heard the Amish called a cult. Yeah, exactly.
Well, they are.
Yeah,
definitely are.
They are, but people don't perceive them as such because they've been with us for longer, maybe. Yeah.
Or the Mennonites. Yeah. So wait, there was something else I wanted to touch on. No, I think that was the end of that question. Okay, so let's go to these other questions that Secular Psychiatrist teed up on Patreon. Secular Sakai is also asking, Liberia is the only modern African country that is a former American colony. Their flag is even almost identical to the U.S. flag. Does the U.S. government have a moral obligation to help poor Liberia prosper, given that it is still one of the world's poorest nations and also descends from the USA? Okay. So I was doing, oh my gosh. Whenever I go back in my memory bank to talk about stuff that I learned a while ago, I usually get stuff wrong. So apologies in advance. What I remember learning about Liberia, within the past 2 months, was obviously it's, for those who don't know, it is on the west coast of Africa, and it is a place where the U.S. actually paid for slaves, formerly enslaved people, to return to Africa. And this was done under President Monroe, which is why the capital is called Monrovia, why the flag looks the way it is, and like Liberia, like liberty, libre, freedom. That's what this means. And I think I'm so bad at history. I think the country was doing fairly well in the last interference by some Americans.
You got cut for a few seconds. Can you go back?
Basically, I don't know how accurate this is, but I saw some videos about how things were going on the slightly upward trend until there was actually some interference by some Americans. Now, there's conspiracies about if they were involved with the CIA or not. And then this is kind of what it pushed Liberia into chaos that we see today. So given that the US has this history, both hundreds of years ago and the more recent past, I don't know if USA involvement would be a good thing, because whether people disagree about how much USA involvement there was in the latter half of the 20th century, but it didn't seem like it went well, whatever happened. So I don't know if we want more involvement. And if I got that history totally wrong, I apologize. It was just my recollection.
I'm not against U.S. Intervention, but there's a new model. There's a new model that is going around, which seems
New intervention dropped.
All right, so the model that hasn't been working, okay, in Iraq it didn't work, in Syria it didn't work, in Afghanistan it didn't work, right? So that model is like, let's just go in there and give people democracy, okay, using military force, right, without their officially requesting, okay. Let's just go there and just like, we know what your people need and we're just going to give it to them by force, okay. That model did not work, okay. But the problem is that people just generalize like, okay, so this means intervention bad. But no, that means bad intervention bad. Could be, just because United States hasn't had a good record recently for intervention, that doesn't mean, I mean, technically it did have one good intervention, like when it came to saving Kuwait, right? So that was good. When it comes, like, people think like they have to go all the way back to World War II to remember a good U.S. intervention. But no, I mean, what they did with Kuwait, that was pretty decent, right? The way that they managed to unite the world in saving Kuwait from Saddam. So that worked out pretty fine. They could have, if they didn't screw it up after, that would have been a good recent memory in U.S. intervention. Well, but they did so much screw up after that people don't, that's not what people think of when it comes to U.S. intervention, right? But just like that intervention, the other interventions that are popular right now is like helping Ukraine, right? Or standing with Taiwan, right? And what do these have in common? What they have in common is that we don't go and give people democracy. We look for countries who already are democratic and need defending, and they'll just invite us. They just like, we go with their permission. So the good thing about this is that it's so much in line with respecting international law, right? Because it's not like, hey, guess who showed up? It's US and we're going to bring you democracy. It's like, we are here because the officially internationally recognized government here is asking for help, and we're here on their request. This is like, who could object to this? These are two independent sovereign countries deciding to work with each other over their defense. Like, we're like, oh, United States is like meddling here. Like, we're two allies helping each other. What are you talking meddling? We're here with their request. So the new model is like going around. If United States wants to maintain its influence around the world, looking for the reason, this is another reason why this is really good, other than the fact that it doesn't break international standards, like accepts international laws, unlike Bush, where it went to Iraq without a meaningful coalition or without international backing. The good thing is that the excuse that you need to find allies is consistent human rights, democracy and human rights. I know these are excuses. I know that these are not higher on the agenda, okay, of international politics, okay, but because you need a reason for you to go and ally with these countries to be able to exert your influence, then some minimum level has to be met between these allies for them to have this excuse of working with each other. And that will make human rights a little bit higher on the priority list. I know, like, it seems like hypocritical to talk about United States and human rights because, like, they're also responsible for a lot of human rights violations. But again, making this as a standard, as an excuse for all these allies to be working with each other, still makes it better than what the worst situation could be. It will still be better if this is the narrative and this is the standard where people are using as a way to collaborate with each other, and the standards that they want to set for each other to defend against enemies. Like, if you have enemies and you want to defend yourself against them, the distinguishing factor between you and them is democracy and human rights, then that will become more and more, it will become a lot more highlighted. And even if it's for a PR excuse, then you would have to, take your human rights more seriously just to be able to use that as a PR, right? So that's the best we could hope. If people think like, oh, this is too, well, obviously these people don't actually care about human rights. So, well, if you throw this a method of promoting human rights out the window, you don't have any other method. I know this supporting human rights when it comes to politics might mainly be as a way to exert soft power, okay? But other than this method of trying to encourage major countries to support human rights, there is no other way. So you have to use the only tool that we have, other than just hoping that they just do this out of their because they're being just kind. I mean, that does happen sometimes. Let's not be too cynical, but we can't rely on that. We have to show that you do benefit something economically or politically out of it, and that's how it works. What?
I just want to highlight this comment. Armin is not just handsome, he's very handsome.
Well, thank you. Does that make sense what I just said?
Yeah, definitely. So here is a question from Secular Sakai. Secular Sakai is asking, Dig Deep is an NGO that provides home access to clean water and solar power for Americans living in regions of the United States where neither exist, with a heavy focus on Appalachia and the Navajo Nation. Why does the U.S. government not help more and continue to allow these regions to live under third world conditions and scrub their water even more with uranium and coal mining, then refuse to clean afterwards? Well, you asked this question in the middle of the show, so normally I would do a little bit more research and digging to be able to give you more of like a fully formed answer. So off the top of my head, I don't really know. There's probably a history behind this that ties into the history of development in the United States. I know that there is a lot of monopolizing of industries that were intentionally created throughout American history to help develop different regions. Maybe that played a factor in this. In terms of the Navajo Nation, that's obviously a different nation, so that might have something to do with the underdevelopment in that area, like those technicalities. But oh my gosh, it's shameful.
Yeah.
There's a lot of government mismanagement in areas like this.
I don't know much about this, but I do know that Xi Jinping just offered to buy me Iran.
Oh, snap.
Look at this.
Hey, Armin, I will buy Iran for you. Love from Xi.
Well, okay then.
Oh my gosh, is this going to be your play? Because, they're all the Iranian nationalists who are saying that Iran is being sold off to China and Russia.
Xi Jinping,
you'll return it to Iranian hands.
Okay, Xi Jinping is saying, do they only take Patreon questions? We mostly, yes, take Patreon questions only. But if he could buy to afford Iran for me, I'm pretty sure Xi Jinping has enough money to become a patron, okay? Become a patron right now. I mean, I tell people not to become patrons because they are financially struggling. Okay, so if you're financially struggling, do not support us financially. But you're Xi Jinping. You're okay. So you definitely should support us financially. Link in the description. Become a patron, and we will answer your questions. We have Q&As every week. So there you go.
He's saying, pay up, Xi Jinping.
Yeah, like Xi Jinping. Yeah, look, he has another question. Do you guys only take Patreon questions? Mostly, yes. Sometimes Susanna decides
Today
to
we have more time to take live chat questions.
By the way, I have a link. But 1 second. By the way, I have a link under our community tab for only our YouTube members. If they want to come talk to us live on air, you have to be a YouTube member to see it, just in case anyone wants to. But we will only give you a few moments to do that because we're going to leave soon. But
Did you already post that?
Yes, I did. I just I posted it a few minutes ago.
So if there are any members that want to come up, you can. Higgs Boson is asking, you said last week you'd bring up old questions too.
No, that was about the. Well, first of all, that was about the Kashmir files. There was a question asked by Oxymoron for us to answer what we think about it. But me and Susanna decided to watch that. When
In
are
2
we
days.
watching that? In 2 days. So
I've been watching documentaries on Kashmir. It's been very, very interesting.
okay,
I
so
realized
we're
that I
gonna watch
know
it.
freaking nothing about Kashmir and I needed to fix that.
Yeah.
But I wanted to watch some documentary style coverage first before watching Kashmir Files so I could have a better idea of the context of what I'm getting into. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. Oxymoron is saying, should Puerto Rico be allowed to vote in presidential elections? Okay, but
yes.
well, yeah, but they would lose a lot of their tax advantages. Like, depends on what they want. I think we should have I don't know anything, okay, but if I had to just guess, I think there should be a referendum in Puerto Rico, and Puerto Ricans can decide which one would you prefer, your tax advantages or being able to vote in presidential elections. And that referendum, I think that referendum should determine whether or not they are allowed. So they should decide themselves if they prefer what they have right now, or if they prefer to be able to get a vote.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
Arjun is asking, I want to see Armin's pics in traditional Muslim clothes back when he was a child and hadn't fully become an atheist.
What traditional clothes? What would you think a religious person would wear? Like, unless you're an imam, you wouldn't look.
Yeah, you were never a cleric. Or a
yeah, okay. So
student.
there is no traditional clothing for religious people in Iran. There is no traditional clothing. There is a tradition. There might be a more religious look, but that would not depend. The type of clothes wouldn't change. The only thing that would change is that you would have longer beards and you have button shirts, and you just not tuck it in your pants. Okay, so it's the same clothes. You just wear it a different way.
Wait, you wear a button-up shirt, but you don't tuck in the tails?
Mm-hmm.
That's so interesting, because I would think the religious look is the more formal look, right? But if the shirt tails are out, then that's more informal. So that's interesting to me. There are photos of you when you were growing a beard when you were more religious.
Yeah.
I remember seeing those. And if you read Armin's book, there's a picture of him kissing the Quran when he was like a little baby.
That's not religious. I know,
but it's cute.
Okay, people who are not religious at all, they do this traditional things you do, right? Like, even some of the most non-religious people I've seen, they have like a Quran in their have seen. That's just like something you do before a trip, or before something important. You kiss the Quran. You might doesn't mean that you're religious. It's weird. It's actually, now I think about it, it must sound weird to people when I say like, "Oh, you're kissing the Quran," but you're not religious. They're like, what? You're kissing the Quran. Yeah, no, this is just like a ritual. I'm trying to find a picture of a Iranian Basij. I can't find anything because everything that I'm saying is in uniform. I'm talking about day-to-day life. Yeah, it's just like, just think of somebody with beard, unkept beard, button-up shirt, but not tucked in, and some khaki pants. Khaki.
Wait, we just had a juicy question asked by Secular Sakai.
Where?
Oh, this is juicy. Ooh. 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 Okay, I'm excited. So, Secular Sakai is asking, which is better, an established dom-sub dynamic or a switch relationship?
Wait, switch as in you switch between dom and sub?
You switch roles.
So both, in the sense that one will work within the, helps the other. One enhances the other. Okay? So okay. So bear with me. The best situation is when you have a pretend switch relationship, right? As in the sub has taken over, but she is still the sub, okay?
Yeah.
And she is just doing certain things that makes if the eventual dom taking over and getting revenge more juicy. Do you know what I'm saying? So for example, imagine that the sub is like in charge, and I'm not going to be descriptive because YouTube might be like very sensitive, right? And she is doing everything she wants, and she's being naughty, and she's like she knows that she's doing something wrong. Okay, she looks like she's in charge, but she knows that this is wrong, and she's not supposed to be here, and she's not supposed to be in this position. And the dom is very angry, and she's like just having so much fun with it, and she knows that she's going to be paying the price for it. She's scared about paying the price for it, but she's also kind of excited about paying the price for it. And eventually, when she goes back into the position that she ought to be, she's like, oh no, okay, now the dom is constantly reminding her about all the things she did and all the things that she shouldn't have been doing, and the punishment will get extra because of all that. And she's like, she will be constantly reminded about, remember you did this, remember you did that. So that would be switch, but still within the framework of an established dom sub dynamic. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So technically, there's like some slight differences in technicalities. So that wouldn't necessarily be a switch relationship. That would be a sub who is topping the dom.
Yes, that's the best.
So switch refers to a genuine reversal of roles.
No,
not. Yeah.
Like
so the dom becomes the bottom, and the sub would top. That's what you're talking about. But it's still. But here's the distinction, though. It's still very much the sub, just temporarily topping. Versus there's an actual reversal of roles.
Yes. Well, I think
that's the difference.
I don't like the actual reversal of roles. I like a runaway sub. You know what I mean? Oh, Bread of Life is here. Run, Bread of Life. This is not your pure ears cannot take this conversation.
D is saying this hypothetical went much smoother than the China question. Well, it's easy. We've thought about this a lot.
Yes. Yeah.
I think which is better completely depends on the people involved. I don't think there is necessarily one that is better than the other for all people. So I don't know if I want to disclose that publicly. Well, for example, so I'm very biased. I'm bisexual. I would say that being bisexual is objectively better. Okay. I mean, yes, we have worse mental health outcomes because of societal issues. Okay. But besides that, I think being bisexual is by far the best sexuality to have. I could easily say that that's better. Okay. Easily. But in terms of this is very specific to the people involved. So there is no like universal better. I think, yeah, for me, I am definitely more like dom sub with one gender and then more switchy with the other gender, which is very interesting to me. So for me, it's like, oh, which is better? It changes so much depending on like my felt experience with that sex. So
a bisexual could be a sub. For a bisexual girl, for example, could prefer to be a sub with men, but a dom with girls.
Yeah, that's an example. Yeah. Or like switchy with girls.
But also maybe just dom with girls.
That as well. So
or my preference.
Okay.
It's a girl who's a sub, okay, but likes to be a dom in front of her master to another girl.
Yeah.
So she's often a sub, but she likes to play the dom role as a show for her master.
So there's a hierarchy.
Yes, like I'm a dom, but I'm a dom for you. I'm a dom as a way to please you.
Interesting. Ooh. I'm like, I like this conversation. Okay. I could talk about this for 45 minutes, but let's not. So the Roaring Man is asking, question for both of you. What are your views on David Wood deleting his channel and your view on Robert Spencer being a bigot like Harris Sultan has stated? So let's take the David Wood question first and then go to Robert Spencer. For those who don't know, Armin, would you explain why David Wood deleted his channel?
I think if I understand it correctly, he just doesn't like these giant tech companies having so much say in how we talk and how we how we operate. And he thinks that I think he thinks that it's inevitable for them to just delete his channel. So he was like, I would rather delete my channel first before they do it, because if they delete my channel, then none of his content will have any home on YouTube. But if he deletes his channel, other people can independently take his videos and put it on YouTube, because without violating YouTube's community guidelines, right? Because if his channel gets removed, then none of his videos are allowed on YouTube anymore. But if he deletes all his channel and all his videos, other people will be able to. I don't know.
Is he going to move somewhere else? Because that's how he makes his livelihood, right?
Yeah. I just don't think that there's any other video platform that will have the reach, like a fraction of the reach. So I don't know how's that going to work out. I mean, if Trump couldn't do it, like Trump with all the fame that he has, he tried to leave traditional social media. He still has a lot of influence, but he doesn't have the social media influence that he used to have, right?
He doesn't have that direct line of communication to his audience in the same way.
So you can see that even somebody who has a lot of influence and continues having a lot of influence in politics and has a lot of followers, people didn't migrate to the social media platforms that he wanted them to, right? So there's that. Okay, so Bread of Life is asking, are people joining the stream? Okay, so there is a link under the community tab for any member if they want to come talk, jump up and talk to us. But Bread of Life, you are the health CEO, so you could talk to us directly.
Yeah. I replied to your email, Bread of Life. Wait, but let's take the second half of this question. Do you think Robert Spencer is a bigot like Harris Sultan stated? Which is interesting for me because Harris, I remember, used to defend Robert Spencer. He had him on his channel a few times. I think yes.
Yeah, I think so too. I think he's sometimes careful to say that, hey, not all Muslims, but more often the way he talks about Muslims gives me the impression that he's bigoted against Muslims, So there's that.
Honestly, I think David Wood is. I think he falls into anti-Muslim bigotry or.
Yeah, David Wood himself,
leads people to it. Very often.
Yeah.
Very often.
Yeah, I mean, okay, it's hard to, it's always a chance that we're wrong, okay? There's always a chance that, but David Wood also sometimes gives me the impression that he condemns, he has a less favorable view on people for being Muslims. Just for being Muslims, yeah, which is, I don't think it's fair. The way
the rhetoric he uses is so generalizing, and it's also not truthful to how Muslim communities necessarily always operate. Like he really acts as if, or maybe not all the time, but oftentimes it seems like he acts like Muslims are just, you plug in the Quran and it's just a little Quran robot. Like this isn't actually part of the Muslim communities across the world are dynamic, right? You can't just paint everyone with the same brush and say, oh my gosh, jihad is around the corner. I don't think.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of fear mongering, and I think the lines between criticizing Islam and condemning Muslims is broken many times. We have some. Should I?
Oh my goodness! Hello.
Hey.
How are you, Armin and Susanna?
Good. How are you?
Wonderful.
Good. Nice to meet you. Well, I feel like
too.
I know you. Nice to have you meet me.
Yeah.
True. For those who don't know, Rebecca is our resident Christian supporter, which is so appreciated.
Thank you. Well,
you're definitely one of the nicest Christians we've interacted with.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, actually. I feel like Christians should be nicer. But you know what, I've interacted with some pretty nasty Christians online too. So I definitely understand. But it is I love what you guys are doing. Like you really care about the world.
I don't want us to talk about Christians like that, because there's nasty everything. There's nasty atheists.
Yeah.
There are nasty Christians. There are a lot of good atheists, good Christians, good Muslims. So we were just talking about Muslims, right? We don't want to. Bad experiences with certain group of people shouldn't make us like generalize that entire group of people because of the bad experience we have had with some of them. Obviously.
And that's actually why I wanted to jump on right when you guys were talking about this, because this is something I'm really passionate about. I love Muslims. Like I lived 10 years in 3 different Muslim majority countries. And it really bothers me that the main thing that like American Christians, Americans in general, it seems like they really, they see what's on the news. And of course there are Muslims doing terrible things, but I actually wrote a book to kind of change people's perceptions. So I have a book called Bridges of Love and Understanding, and it is really just kind of trying to share my experience with Muslims and help Christians in particular understand and appreciate Muslims. And and about David Wood, I've heard him say that like this is the stuff that he puts out about Islam and Muslims, like that's not how he would approach, like if he had a Muslim neighbor or something like that. Like he's doing it in the same way you guys are doing stuff. Like when you put out anti-religious stuff, like I've been watching your Hindu stuff, and it's not that you hate Hindu people, right? You're just trying to show what the religion teaches. So I think that's what David Wood is doing, but I think he actually loves Muslims.
Well, he has no choice. He's a Christian. He's been commanded to love everybody. So okay, this is why I'm kind of a little bit critical about Christian love, because it doesn't feel genuine when it's a command. Like you cannot command love. I mean, like one of the weirdest commandments in Christianity is to love thy neighbor. Like love is not something that you could just muster up and be like, oh, I hate this person. Like, oh, you've been commanded to love them. Like, okay, now I love them. But like, well, you don't have control over who you love, do you? Like, I don't know what. So
you're making a great point, and I think when Christians are like, well, I'm just gonna keep loving them. Well, that actually kind of proves that you don't really love them, right? Like if you have to like force yourself into it, all you're doing is proving that you don't really love, you're just making something up, right? You're pretending. So, I mean, I think you're making a good point, but I do think when you really know Jesus, like the more that you know Jesus, the more you naturally love people. It's something that just flows from you, and it's not something that you have to conjure up.
I mean, the more, okay, so to be fair, the more I know Jesus, the more I feel like he hated people himself.
Really?
I mean, yeah.
Okay, tell me. Will you tell me?
I mean,
Wait, first, I just want to ask, because I'm supposed to be here to ask a question, but are you okay? I want to hear. No, I don't need to ask a question. I really want to. Okay, my question is, what do you think about Jesus? Tell me about Jesus.
I mean, he hated people, and also not just people. He hated trees.
I don't know if it was all trees, just that one.
That specific tree. Like, he was so.
Armin always talks about that tree.
Okay, what people do you think he hated?
I mean, okay, so if you tell me that you love me, but you also are going to make worms eat out my eye just because I looked at somebody lustfully, I mean, like, okay, what is really, you were really twisting the definitions of love here, okay? And if you tell me like, oh, I love you so much, and if you don't love me, I will make sure you burn forever. I'm like, okay, like maybe love me
Bravo.
less. Right.
I couldn't agree with you more. I
Right.
totally agree. And actually, I think this is something, if you've noticed, that there is a movement, and I'm part of it, trying to reform people's vision of what hell means in the Bible. It is not a place of internal torment. And actually, there's some atheists that, if you watch Genetically Modified Skeptic, he just came out with a video on this. Bart Ehrman just came out with a book on this about how hell is not this place of eternal conscious torment. I have like 5 videos on this that, you know, I've done, trying to show people that this idea of God torturing people forever is not in the Bible. So,
well, no, I think their argument is that historically they didn't have such a hell, okay? But then eventually when Christianity, as it's canonized and it was understood, then it did. Like, they're saying, what they're suggesting is that the concept of hell was not there to begin with. It eventually was developed in Christianity. But as the Bible is today, we have eternal torment in the Bible right now.
Well, actually, only because of the way they're translating the word Gehenna.
I mean, lake of fire, gnashing of the teeth, and you know, worms eating out their eyes. I mean, these are pretty, you know, the only way through heaven is through me. And then, like, their book, just the last book itself, the book of Revelation itself, makes it clear that people be burning. Like, it's about burning and suffering. Like, just based on that one book, that's what the impression you get from hell. No?
Yeah, well, the worms eating people, Jesus said, where the worms do not die and the fire is not quenched. He is quoting from the book of Isaiah, which is talking about dead bodies. So worms feeding on dead bodies. So not torturing you while you're alive. Anyway, we can have a longer discussion about this, but the Bible, it talks about the afterlife, even just in the New Testament. I found, a couple hundred verses that talk about the afterlife, and the contrast is always life versus death, except for 2 verses in Revelation that you mentioned. But Revelation is a book that's filled with symbolic imagery. It's full of metaphor. If we're going to base our idea about the afterlife, we shouldn't take 2 verses from Revelation and ignore hundreds of verses in the rest of the Bible that talk about life versus death, not this place of eternal conscious torment.
Okay, so here's the book of Revelation. Okay, so this is this part of Revelation.
This still isn't as cool as your Lego Bible. I
Yeah,
want
it's
you to
saying,
pull this up in the Lego Bible.
Oh,
Okay.
I got that Lego Bible. That Lego Bible is, wow, that's crazy. It's graphic. Okay.
So and it says, and the devil who deceived them was hurled right into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet already were, and they will be tormented. It says, where's the part that says our people? There was a place where it says, okay, the God fire reigned, and tormented, and day and night. Wait, there was a part where it says that we will burn in hell. This one. There was another. Okay, so this is another page. Sorry. But as for the cowards and the hateful unbelievers, so us, it's talking about us, murderers and molesters, idolaters and conjurers of evil spirits, and all other liars, their portion will be in the lake, and that burns, lake that burns with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. Okay, so this is specifically talking about me and Sue. This is my hand after I die. This is like me burning. Okay, and this is specifically talking about unbelievers. So it's putting unbelievers next to murderers and molesters. Like, that's not fair. That's not. We believe we belong in the same category.
Well, I think you're getting a free pass. Anybody who jumps out of
This
a
is
window
you.
to avoid hell
This is-
gets a free pass, okay?
This is
What?
you enjoying heaven. Okay, and this is me burning in hell.
Well, first of all, do you know you're going to die already? Like, are you planning? Do you think you're going to be able to avoid death?
Oh, he's planning on it.
Yeah. Yes.
Like, that's not a
transhumanism.
joke.
Yeah, but why? Why?
Well,
Let's say no.
I mean, if God kills you, that's really no different than what you're already going to experience, right? You're going to die. I mean, so.
I mean, I'm hoping that I'm gonna die in a hospital bed, surrounded by loved ones, not in a lake of fire, burning for eternity. I think that's a bit different.
Yeah, I do too. It's a hugely different, right? I mean, but
Yeah.
now let me ask you this. It said the second death, right? When you
Right.
think of people dying, when you think of death, do you think of them going on living?
Well, it says it. I know. I mean, it's the Bible. It's not supposed to make sense. It says eternity in there, so it mentions eternity. So yeah, I mean, death. You're right. When I think of death, it's something temporary and then it stops. Okay, they're talking about the second death and they're talking about eternal torment. How does that make sense? I don't know. Ask Jesus.
I don't think it does. I don't think it is eternal torment. It's
okay, but you're saying like if it wasn't for eternity, why is it saying calling it death? Okay, but you're speaking as if it's supposed to be consistent and make sense. Okay, I'm looking at from a perspective that, well, none of this is supposed to make sense. So the contradictions make sense to me because it's not supposed to be consistent. Do you know what I mean?
So you're like, it's all over the place. You're not. Yeah, I get it. Well, and from my perspective, Jesus said, for God so loved the world that he gave his one and only son, that whoever believes in him will not perish, but have eternal life. So perish, die. I mean, will not die. So dying is dying. You don't go on being living. That's eternal. Suffering forever in hell, that's life. But it's a really sucky life, but it's life. But that's not what Jesus said. He said it's like, couple hundred times.
They were different because there were different competing cults in the formation of Christianity, right? So the reason why we see some inconsistency or perishing or eternal fire, what are we talking about, right? This is the competition between effects by older Jewish beliefs and Zoroastrian effects on Judaism, right? So Zoroastrians had, hell. They called Barzakh, and that influenced Judaism. And Judaism all of a sudden had this afterlife, which was hell. But older Judaism didn't have that. Older Judaism had like maybe perishing forever. So the reason why you see like a mix of both of these views in Christianity might be because of influence from competing ideas, right? There are so a lot of people who believe that the Bible is supposed to be true look at these inconsistencies, and they're like, well, this has to make sense, and they come up with interpretation in a way to try to make all of these work with each other, right? But if you didn't have that limitation, like as an atheist, I don't have to think that this has to make sense. Therefore, I don't have to make all of these fit together, because my belief is that they don't fit together. Do you know what I'm saying?
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get that. There's a lot of
Yeah.
stuff that really if you want to make sense of the Bible, you do have to kind of like be like, all right, either I don't know, or kind of fit it together. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
if you look at the history, I mean, you're studying Bart Ehrman, right?
I've
You
read
said
some of
you-
his books. Yeah.
Okay, so the more you read about the history of religion, the more you see like eventually what was decided as the orthodox position was more of a political fight between different groups. It wasn't like, oh, God told us this is the way. You realize that people were accepting, submitting,
It's political.
dominating. Yeah, it was political. It was about who's in charge, the events that are happening and making sense of it. One political group with this religious view all of a sudden taking over and becoming more popular because of this invasion that just happened. So it's more of, coincidences of, history that eventually determines what we accept as Islam, Christianity, Judaism. It's all very human. And that's why it's actually beautiful. I think Christianity and Islam and Hinduism, they're beautiful because not as a guide to life. Like, I don't like them as a guide. I don't like to look at I think as a guide to life, Bible is really horrible, and the Quran is very horrible, and the Gita is very horrible. Okay, but as a reflection of humanity, they're actually very beautiful. When you look at the Bible and you look at how it was created, and then you will discover so much about how our minds and politics and society works. What led the story of Christianity, I think it's not the story of Jesus. Okay, I think the story of Christianity are the story of the people who made Jesus. Okay,
Mhm.
That is the story, and discovering why they made Jesus and how they made Jesus. That tells us more about humanity than Jesus ever could. Also, Jesus was racist.
You think so?
Yeah.
Why do you think Jesus was racist?
Because of the Good Samaritan story. Because the implication of that story is this man is so like he's a Samaritan, like, and he's being
Like,
this
even
good,
a Samaritan.
even a
Like,
Samaritan.
Well,
Like,
now
yeah, go on.
I think he was challenging their racism. He was using them. He was taking what the Jewish people thought of Samaritans as awful, and Jesus made him, the Samaritan, the hero of the story. So,
Yeah, but like,
Mhm.
because it's so shocking. Like that
Yeah.
that a Samaritan, it's so shocking that a Samaritan could possibly do a good thing.
but
like,
not
for
to
example,
Jesus.
okay,
Mhm.
yeah, but you're feeding into that narrative, because, for example, imagine I was telling you, right, and then somebody, came and did a good deed, and it was a black person. Oh my God! Like, can you imagine? like it's kind of like that. Like, and then like what? Yes, he was black. Even like, okay, so I'm just saying, like, I think it's just feeding into the narrative. The fact that this is supposed to be shocking. By the way, didn't he call a Samaritan woman a dog?
Yeah, the Syro-Phoenician woman. Yeah, the Canaanite woman. He called. Yeah,
Oh,
he said,
Canaanite,
"Do you
that was
take
it.
the children's bread and give it to the dogs?" And
Yeah,
she
like
said,
a woman came. Yeah, what did she say?
And the woman said, "But Lord, even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table."
And then he changed his mind. So first, so somebody came and asked Jesus for help, and he said, like, you're a dog because you're a Canaanite. So, and she was like, but even dogs get something. And he was like, okay, sure, whatever. So he was racist. So he was racist.
Well, remember that this is the Canaanites had their own gods. So She was
So it makes the
leaving-
racism
she-
acceptable.
So basically, like, you know, she could go to her own God and ask, but she recognized that Jesus had power. So she was an outsider coming to a foreign God. So she was, you know, in that world, she was like a dog not because Jesus loves, you know, anybody more than, you know, he doesn't like love her less because she's a Canaanite, but she was an outsider.
Because of her, okay, but he determined that based on her being a Canaanite. So that's technically racism.
But you know, but notice what Jesus said. But no, I mean, he said, "Is it right to take the children's bread and give it to the dogs?" So
Yeah, the
there's
children
these
being
people-
the children being the Israelites, the dogs being the Canaanites. So
they were because the Israelites were in covenant with God. They had a deal with God. They were obeying God's commands. The Canaanites were not.
I know, but that's like every racist. Yeah, so this is kind of like saying, like, yeah, I'm calling this black person. Okay, I'm not gonna say it because YouTube might think I'm saying it. Okay, so imagine saying like saying a racist thing about black people and comparing them to things that they shouldn't be, and they're like, well, that's racist. And you're like, well, it's because, and then I don't know, like their culture, or like because they do this, because well, we are taking care of because we are doing this and we are like this and they're like that, right? I'm just saying whatever comes after because is still excusing race. Like we wouldn't accept that excuse when it comes to any races today. Like if you compare like I don't know, any race of existing race of people to an animal, and then we'll say, well, that's not okay. If you then came up with like, well, because they're worshiping that. I mean, oh yeah, like for example, let's say like you called Arabs, you compared them, again, YouTube, I'm not doing this, to compare them to a certain animal, right? And then people are like, well, that's racist. They're like, well, they're worshiping, most of them are worshiping Allah. Right? I mean, I'm sure there were some Canaanites that believe in Jesus.
I'm
so
getting
it's not all of
stressed
them.
over the YouTube ban already.
Okay, yeah. So YouTube, none of this is our, we're calling
Yeah.
out racism, YouTube. We're not being racist, but yeah, go on.
Well, let's say if I went to the Iranian government right now and I said, you know, give me my rights. I want rights in your country. I want this. They would say, no, you're an outsider, right? It's not about racism. It's,
yeah, but
I'm not a citizen of their country.
But she didn't go to a government. She went to a person. It's not as if you go, Rebecca, it wouldn't be as like you went to the Iranian government. It was as if you were poor and hungry and you went to an Iranian person and they had food. That would be more similar. So if you went to the Iranian government and you're like, hey, give me my rights, and they're like, well, you don't have any rights in Iran, that would be right. But if you were starving and you went to an Iranian person and they said, like, I'm not going to give you food because you're not Iranian, then that would be racist. You're white. I'm not white. I'm not going to give you food. Starve. That would be racist. No?
Okay, that's a good point.
Okay, so Jesus is racist.
Oh my gosh. Well, you know what, guys? I don't want to take over, so thank you for having me on. I did not get an email from you. So I hope I would, if either one of you ever want to come on my channel, I would love to have you on and talk to you about your story. I
definitely replied to you last night. So
yeah, I saw it. Maybe
Really?
did you hit reply all?
Folder.
Did you hit
Maybe
reply
you
all?
just-
I saw it.
I didn't get anything.
Hold on. I saw it.
Is it just, maybe she just replied to you, Armin, maybe? Possibly?
Nope, I
Can you-
replied to both of you. So I would check
Okay.
your spam folder, but I have an
Search for
idea of what might be going on, and I can.
Did you use your Atheist Republic email?
Yeah, I can
Use your
CC.
Gmail.
Okay.
Use it.
I'll reach out to you. I'll find you. Don't worry.
Okay. Anyway,
Okay.
thank you for having me on, guys.
Wait, before you go, was I
Yeah.
too harsh?
No. You
Okay.
believe me, you were very good. I'm used to talking to, like, I talk to a lot of people, so I'm very accustomed to this.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Okay.
you were
Yeah,
perfect. You're perfect.
Okay, and I would love to come on your channel if you happen.
Awesome. Thank
Okay.
you. Okay.
Cool.
Good night.
All right.
Have a good
Bye.
night.
All right. Oxymoron is here too. Hi.
Hi. How are you?
How are
Anna?
you? Good.
Hello.
Good. How
Hi,
are you?
Susanna. I'm good.
All right. Go on. What's your question?
Can you hear
Hello?
me?
Yes,
Hello?
we can hear you. Yes.
What do you want to talk about? I think I have 3 topics, but it would take too much. So what do you
All
want to
right.
talk about?
Okay.
Well,
Give
what
us.
are the three? Give us the three and we'll pick one.
We'll pick
Uh,
one. Yes.
we could complete that round, the round thing. I think I have like 4 or 5 questions. So I will put you on spot. You answer, and I think that would
Okay.
settle. I think. Or
Okay.
then
That's
the second is about equality labs, and I think third is about that temple thing, Nupur Sharma temple thing.
all right. Susanna, you pick. Ram would be interesting. I would.
You want to do Ram?
Yeah.
Okay. I think I don't think I have anything to add to that discussion.
We're just
And
talking about his personality. Like we could just judge Drum. It's easy.
Yes,
Like you
yes,
just
we
been.
can judge how.
okay. Yeah. Well, we can continue that conversation. Armin, for people who like haven't seen your previous discussions with Oxymoron about this topic, can you like just
No. Let's
Like-
so Oxymoron, ask it in a way that will be independent. Like just tell us something about Ram that you want to defend him over, and we will attack him, and you could defend him. Like something that it could. If anybody was watching this clip on its own, it would like stand on its own.
Then it will. I think you should pair up the last and this clip. It would be. I think
No,
I said a
what-
lot of stuff.
Just ask the question. I will just give the context. I will give the context.
So I think you said that Ram was being misogynistic, which sorta is fine, but he was also a king, so he was actually putting his duties over his duties. Sita was to putting her duties over her personal life.
All right, so you're saying
which
so
is-
we're Rama, which is a Hindu god, we had the stream saying that he was being misogynist. You're saying that Sita was his, girlfriend or wife or whatever, and he kind of abandoned her because of purity culture, right? Because of him potentially thinking that maybe he slept with another man or didn't, even though it might have been against her will. That was even though
even just
she
staying
loved
in
him.
his household was bad enough.
Yeah, even the stain.
Like, that was bad enough.
And he specifically said that it's because of his reputation, because of people talking about it. It was good enough for him to just abandon Sita and just get rid of her, even though they loved each other, and she was like she felt betrayed and heartbroken. He made this if you read the Gita, he makes it very clear that what he's trying to do is to make sure that people look highly of him, that his reputation is intact. He constantly mentioned about we went to battle not to save Sita, even though Sita was the love of his life. He said like we just went there because this was our duty. This was not for Sita. Sita means nothing to him anymore. And then he was abandoned her, and all because people had rumors that maybe when Sita was kidnapped, the kidnapper had slept with her or touched her. And even though Sita went through a trial of fire to prove that she's pure, which is like the height of purity culture, she went into fire to show that she's clean and she didn't sleep with him. Even after all of that, he still abandoned her, and he was very, very clear that this is because of his reputation and honor culture and purity culture.
He literally put her through a literal trial by fire.
Yes.
Wasn't good enough.
Wasn't good
okay,
enough. Even though she
so this really didn't happen. This is a story by an author.
Wait, Oxymoron. Are you suggesting that a woman went through fire and didn't burn alive and gods showed up in their cars and talked to Ram? You're really telling us that didn't happen? Because we actually thought that all of this happened, every single one of it. Like what do you mean that are you telling me the parts where the gods came down and kind of talked to Ram to tell her to talk to Sita? None of this is real history, because this is shocking.
No.
Your mind is being blown right now. This is not real history.
No, I mean
I was being sarcastic.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, but what do you mean this didn't happen? Of course
But
it
yeah,
didn't happen.
you were treating them like a real character, which is fine. But that didn't happen. A lot of people are treating them like a real
Of
character
course,
having the real
we're
life
atheists.
impacts.
Of course it didn't happen. We're atheists. It says the Atheist Republic here.
Yeah, but you're
Okay,
treating them like real characters
I mean, I talk
who
about
had
Voldemort
impact.
like this. I talk about. Okay, I'm watching Stranger Things. I'm talking about different characters in that movie in the same way. Like I could judge fictional characters.
as described in the canon. And also, there are millions of people that treat these stories as if they're real.
I just
So we
talked
can
about.
talk
I just
about
called.
we can talk about these characters as because they are treated as real by implication by many people. So we don't believe that, but we can still talk about the consequences of the actions as they are portrayed and glorified because they have that might be fictional, but it has real consequences.
Oh yeah. So the
And
problem is,
the call right before you, the bread of life came up, and I just specifically said Jesus was racist. Okay, I don't know if Jesus was actually racist. I don't know how much of Jesus' story is real. Okay, I'm just talking about the way he was portrayed in the Bible. That character is racist. I talk about Muhammad the same way. Muhammad, the character, not the real Muhammad. The real Muhammad, we don't know much about the real Muhammad. We don't know much about the real Muhammad. I'm talking about Muhammad, the character of Muhammad as described by Islam. The real Muhammad, nobody knows about. Okay, Ram is even worse. Okay, at least Jesus and Muhammad were probably based on real people. Okay, Ram is a god. Okay, he obviously didn't exist. Were you ever under the impression that we thought that this is real history?
no, but I thought that you were considering him as a real character. You were treating him like a real character having real life impact. So that's where
No.
I came from.
Okay. Yeah, none of this happened. We don't think any of this happened. This
Okay.
is just
So
stories.
But the lessons
So
that are taught in this book does have real life consequences.
like
Like
an example.
I can never pronounce things right, so I apologize. But the Ramayana, like the importance of filial piety, the importance of having piety to your parents, to your brother, like the way that Ram's brother has piety towards him. That's very important. That sets up social and familial stratification. That's obviously one of the most important morals from the story. The way that the lifestyle of the aesthetic is talked about in the Ramayana is also very important. The purity culture that's imbued and demonstrated through the story of Sita is also very important. It teaches people very clearly about the roles in modes of behavior that they should imitate as what is most godly, most desirable, and has been prescribed to them, right? It's supposed to be seen as a source of emulation.
Yes, they are supposed to be seen as source of evolution, but I think the societies of that time contextualized those things in their society around them. So I don't think the societies could have been any better if there was no Ramayana. I think every story that's continued forward, taken forward, either goes to reform or is abandoned over course of time if
Or it could
it
be
doesn't
just seen
change.
as myth, or it could just be enjoyed as myth. Right. So our problem with this, so our problem with these myths is when people see that as a guide to life. We don't have any problem with them if it's a source of culture and entertainment and enjoyment of mythology. Like, for example, I have a problem with Islam. Okay. I don't have any problem with Zeus. Zeus was an a-hole. Okay. Zeus had unconsensual relationship with a whole bunch of people and punished a whole bunch of people unjustifiably. Okay, but I enjoy that as stories because nobody uses that as a model for how things ought to be. Right? I could enjoy Islam without any reservation if it was just mythology as well, but I can't because people you take that seriously as a guide to life. Okay, and here's why Hinduism is more, even though it has a lot of vile text, is more defendable, is because less people take it seriously as a guide to life. Okay, like the Hindu scripture is not taken like the way the Quran or the Bible is taken as seriously as like, this is what I ought to do. Okay,
but the text itself is, in the scripture itself, is de-emphasized, but the stories, legends, epics, and the moral myth making is so
still
imperative still. So they might not know the actual verse, but the lessons imbued are still very central.
Yes, but this is the problem with religion, and I agree with you, Oxymoron, if you're suggesting, well, this is the standards of the time. Okay, the problem with tradition and the problem with religion is that it makes those outdated traditions sticky. You know, it makes it harder for us to progress out of them, because people value tradition and value sticking with the old ways, especially when it's canonized in such, you know, accessible ways in the form of religion or scripture.
But I think the myths, even the myths by themselves, have real life impacts. If you consider movies have profound impacts on societies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, like even Spider-Man has a lot of impact on a lot of children.
Yes, I agree.
So it doesn't change the fact that even myths have the same impact, just like religions. I mean, these the movies are modern myths.
Actually, that's a point for us. Okay, so I agree that so you're saying just like movies have an impact on the way we look at society, myths have the same. They also have this effect. So we should look into what those effects are, and if they're negative one, we should criticize it.
Yeah. The criticism wasn't.
You're not denying. So you're not denying the effect. You are agreeing that the effect is there.
Yeah, but I'm saying that.
Oxymoron, do you know anyone? Have you met anyone who believes that Rom is not a story, it's not a myth, that this was real, and that this was history?
I met a lot of people who actually believe Ramayana didn't happen, and they are Hindus.
That's not my question. I said, have you met people who do believe that?
Yeah, there are a lot of people who do believe that.
Okay. So this is part of the reason why we go after this story so hard, because that makes the consequences of the lessons that are being taught in this story that much more important, because they are held as actual fact. Let alone there are people who don't even believe that it was real, but still see it as a way to learn lessons, right? That also has problems, but it's not as severe as it genuinely being held to be true.
Okay, so there are
Oxymoron. That's a very good point Susanna just made. So there's two things, right? So let's compare Ramayana to Harry Potter. Okay, there's one thing you could criticize is like Harry Potter is actually giving a moral lesson, a good moral lesson. Like it's an anti-racist message, right? The entire point of True Blood, Half Blood, all of that is to show children that, you know, judging people based on their innate characters is not the right way to go. So when it comes to that, Harry Potter is superior to the Ramayana, okay? But let's say Harry Potter actually had it had a negative effect on children. It had messages within it that encourage racism, okay? Then we would have strongly come out against Harry Potter and would criticize it as a book that is teaching us to be more racist. We would definitely condemn it, okay? But even if Harry Potter had a bad moral lesson and we would be against it, it was still, the Ramayana would be more dangerous, because people understand that Harry Potter is not a real world, or not a real thing, okay? But a lot of people believe that Ram was a god and this story all is real. So the effect on a lot of people understand that the Ram way is the right way, okay? So the effect on people's morality and the cost to society would be much greater. This is why religion has even a greater impact on people's morality than movies. Movies do, but religions are greater. So we have to be against Ramayana for two reasons. One, it's a bad moral lesson. Two, a lot of people consider it to be real, so the effects are much more significant.
So there are multiple versions of Ramayana. The version you are talking about is the oldest, I think the oldest Ramayana that exists. And I think it wasn't really meant to be a bhakti text, means the devotional text. It was not even supposed to be discussed with a lot of people. The Ramayana that's very mainstream is 14th century Ramayana, which is
Okay, so you are
Ramcharitmanas.
confirming. So basically, you're admitting that the original Ramayana is problematic by saying
No,
by
I think original Ramayana is better. It's just people
Wait.
couldn't understand it. I
Okay.
can
Better
make case
how?
for it.
This is okay. No. Okay, so this is the common This is the common defense I get from religious texts. Okay, so you have religious texts that are up so horrible. Okay, but these reformist elite people come in and they come up with an interpretation that makes it kind of okay, less horrible, and they just say people are too stupid to understand it. Okay, but so I don't believe what you're saying is true, but let's assume it's true. Okay, so would you agree that the original Ramayana, okay, at the hands of the people, that has a bad effect?
Mm, but nobody really reads the Valmiki Ramayana, which is
Okay,
sort of original.
I'm just trying to get one thing confirmation from you. Okay, the original Ramayana, the way that it's written, okay, the effect that has on the masses, if available to the masses, is negative.
Probably, yes.
Okay, good. So now tell us, what is the newer model? Does that have Ram burning Sita to test her purity? Does that like you say the newer version was not as bad as the older version? Does in the newer version does Sita get trialed by fire to prove her purity? Yes or no?
In some Ramayana it does, in some it doesn't. So
There's
in
no trial by
Ramcharitmanas
fire.
they make a fake Sita
You're saying we
for
have
public.
Ramayana out there that there's no trial by fire.
In Ramcharitmanas, I think they make fake Sita, which is called, I think, Maya Sita, something. So illustrious Sita, she is sent to fire. She wasn't even kidnapped. She was so pure that the Ravana couldn't even touch her.
You have to, I don't know if this what you're telling me is accurate or not, but you are misleading all of us here if you do not agree that whatever versions of Ramayana we have, the mainstream understanding of Ramayana by the vast majority of people is that Sita was put on trial by fire to prove her purity, and then she was eventually ousted out by Rama, because even after she met the trial by fire.
Yeah.
Like that is a part.
That's
that
definitely
is
the most mainstream version.
That is the most mainstream part. That is the element that is people understand.
Yeah. So yes, but the storylines differ. So it wasn't actually Sita. They try to make the point that it wasn't Sita. Which was kidnapped, and
How many people understand? Like you're saying, you're doing a switcheroo. Like you're doing the Islamic version on Jesus. You know how Jesus was not crucified? It was like a fake Jesus, right? That's
what I thought of too. They did a body double. There was a dupe.
Yeah. So they did it. So I don't like that kind of version of Gita, which is actually very snowflaked. So I'm here to defend the original version.
Okay.
No, but even this version that you're trying to say, like, you have to understand, you have to tell everybody, be honest with everybody. That's not the mainstream understanding. That is not the story where people understand that. The vast majority of people, including Hindus, that are the story that they know of the Rama and Sita story is that it was Sita that was put on trial by fire to prove her purity.
So the thing is that most people actually used to learn Ramayana from their grandmothers or grandfathers.
Okay,
generally.
but can you yes or no? Yes or no? This what I'm telling you is what most people, the vast majority of people, okay, that they know the story of Sita and Rama, this is the version that they understand. It was
yes.
Sita. Okay.
Yes.
There you go. Okay.
So, but the period varies. I think from 50s or 60s. I think especially after television, this is the mainstream version that she was put on trial, and
okay, so
she was.
You want to defend that? You want to defend somebody being put on trial to prove her purity?
The first version, it kind of makes sense. The first version.
Okay, tell us why it makes sense.
So
And this should be the last one because we have to go soon.
okay, I'll put questions. I'll ask you questions. So I'll put you on spot. You answer how it is wrong or right, or how do you feel about it. So people didn't know actually if Ravana kidnapped the Sita or Sita went with Ravana when she was in forest. So they were doubting the character of Sita. So isn't it natural that people are a bit nosy about their king and queen, or generally the gossip culture?
It's natural. It's natural. Yes, I agree. It's natural.
So after that, the way people were looking at Sita, she was kind of ashamed of herself. And I think you did the live stream 2 or 3 verses before that. I think her posture was like her shoulders were shrinked. She was bowing down when she was talking to Rama, and her gaze was lowered in public. So, do you think it's fair for her to keep in similar posture, in similar public posture throughout her life, ashamed for what she didn't do
I mean,
I'm
in
confused.
front of people?
So because she acted ashamed and nervous to see Ram again after she was kidnapped, she should
People were
stay
judging
acting
her
that
for.
way?
okay, so no, okay, so I think what you're saying is that because of the way her posture, you're trying to come to the conclusion based on her body language that she was definitely guilty, or like she was guilty of something that she expected people to be. That it shows her nervousness shows that she did something that was
Yeah,
wrong.
otherwise, why would they write like that? Why would author
But that
write it
doesn't make
like
sense.
that?
First of all, I have two answers to that, right? First of all, because of how gossipy people are, she probably knew that even though she didn't do anything wrong, people would be gossipy. Okay, so that wouldn't her nervousness doesn't prove her guilt. It just shows her understanding of how gossipy people are, right? Second of all, the same book that wrote that has those writings describes her being kidnapped. So you're saying like, oh, the books are suggesting that she wasn't kidnapped, that she went with her kidnapper willingly, but the text itself earlier mentions that she was kidnapped. So what are you talking about?
So people didn't know. So problem is people didn't know.
Okay, so yeah, she understood, she had a proper understanding that people are going to gossip about her, and that's why she was nervous. That's why she was upset. Okay, and
I think she would have to be walking she would have to do walk of shame in front of people because she knew this would be they would criticize her for all her life.
okay,
I think
and
she
Ram
was
should have
self-aware.
and Rama, being the good guy that he's supposed to be, the role model that he's supposed to be, should have been like, well, screw you people, you guys are a bunch of idiots. F your purity culture. I'm standing with the love of my life. You
Okay,
guys are like,
so okay, so let's take case of Johnny Depp.
Johnny
He
Depp.
was
Last time I checked, is not a god and a role model for mankind.
okay.
I
Now
mean, he is.
gods are flawed, but it doesn't matter. The perfect God emerged way later. So
Oh, you got cut. Oxymoron's audio.
I thought that was just me. Yeah, there's no audio.
Anyways, we do need to go. Let's do the Johnny Depp part another time. Oxymoron.
okay. Hi,
Okay.
hi.
So,
Can you hear me?
yes, we can hear you. Let's do the Johnny Depp part next time. So let's remember to pick it up on Johnny Depp. Okay.
I have to hear
Okay.
this comparison. I'm very curious now.
All right. Next time, come live on air and let's compare. We're gonna cut that segment on its own separately, and we're gonna say Lord Rama versus Johnny Depp. So that could be focused on this comparison. So go work on this comparison and like make it really good, and then we could talk about it next time.
Okay. Let's do it.
Yeah, now I'm curious. Let's get into this.
All right, guys. Thank you, Oxymoron. I know. Look, bread of life likes this.
Wait,
as well.
before we end, Oxymoron, I'm gonna put you down. Really quickly, I want to thank Newmon041 for becoming a member. Welcome to being a Satan's minion. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for supporting. And I hope you join one of our member streams sometime soon.
Yes.
And we actually did get one more patron question from Higgs Boson while we were streaming. So, wait, this is a compliment though. Sorgu is saying Armin is arguably the nicest ex-Muslim, maybe other than Samir. It's hard to be. It's really hard to be nicer than Abdullah.
But yes, it's hard. But also, I mistreat our own members. Like, you see, Bread of Life came up on air, and I was like, instead of thanking her, I kind of attacked all her beliefs. I called her God the racist, an oxymoron. Like, I called all our members come here, and I called their gods like misogynist. Yeah. I called one of our members gods racist, and the other one members gods a misogynist. This is how we treat. This is how we treat the people who support us. God. Your guy's a racist. Your guy's a misogynist.
No, I think challenging doesn't mean that you're not nice. I think you are a really nice person. I think actually people think that you get the impression that you're an asshole, but I think a lot about how like Armin cares so much more deeply for other people than like most people will ever realize. But don't worry, Jesus and I are used to it.
I mean, it's easy for Jesus to be used to it because he has all the power to like light my ass on fire as much as he likes when time comes. Like, hey, keep laughing at me, keep calling me racist. I will have the last laugh. I will watch you burn. Okay, so there we go.
Okay. Well, on that note, taking back that compliment. Last patron question is
wait. Brother Life is like exactly. So, all right, go ahead.
Higgs Boson is asking, is a mother and father in today's world more of a social construct? I mean, does passing on genes, giving birth really matter to be a good parent? No, not at all.
Well, I mean, there's two definitions. There's two concepts of father, and there's two concepts of mother. Okay, so we have father from a biological perspective, which is not at all a social construct because if
that's not up for debate.
Yeah, that's not up for debate because, like, I mean, you know, we have that in the animal kingdom. We have that even in like, you know, so they don't have social constructs, and they, you know, different animals have fathers and mothers biologically, right? But then we also have, so that definition of father is like, or mother is basically the male, you know, parent. Okay. No, yeah. So, but then we have a social construct around mother and father, which is the father is not biologically, is the person who takes care of you, the male figure that raises you as a child. Okay. So for a lot of us, those two happen to be the same. The biological father ends up being the social construct father, and the biological mother happens to be the social construct mother. Okay. But if you're adopted, then they're not the same. Right. So maybe you should have different words for these. I mean, different words in different fields mean different things. In biology, father means something. In our social construct, you know, in sociology, it means something else, right? If I raise you as a child and take care of you, even though I'm not biologically related to you, I am your father, right? And that's how it works. But what is the question? I mean, does passing genes and giving birth really matter to be a good parent?
No.
Again, but being good is not part of the equation here, okay? Because, so this is a third element. You could be someone's father and not the biological father, but be a really crappy non-biological father, right? You could be a father in both sense and still not be a good father, right? Like, you know, you could have an adopted child and be the father and be a really bad father to him, even though you're not biologically his father, but you are socially his father. You're not a good father. So these are three different things. So, you know, I don't think the definition of a father is somebody who takes good care of children. It's somebody who is just raising the children. Does that make sense? Am I answering this right?
Yeah, that's your opinion.
It's the right opinion. Okay, what people say it's just your opinion. Well, it's the fact that it's my opinion makes it superior.
Mm.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, well, on that note, that's the end of today's stream. Thank you for joining us. Please give this a like. Please subscribe, hit the little bell notification so you know when we go live, because sometimes we switch up the scheduling like we did today. And make sure to tune into the news show this week. Big news coming out of India, big ex-Muslim news coming out of India. They're talking about on the news show this week. So that's in 3 days. And yeah, I'm really excited for it. And
hit Satan's bell.
Rub Satan's bell. Lightly.
Rub Satan's bell. Rub?
Yeah.
It would. Okay, sure. Okay. All right. People don't usually rub bells, but okay, if that were. Okay, I think bell means something else for Susanna. Okay. No, Bread of Life is like, okay, so to make this okay for Bread of Life, okay, this is edging Satan if you rub his bell, and he doesn't like it. He does not like it. Okay, he does not like to be edged. So because Bread of Life doesn't want to make Satan happy, we have to make it. We have to sell this to her. Okay, Satan doesn't like to be edged. It's torture for him. It's torture. So if you hate Satan, do edge him. Okay, and you could like stroke the bell, and Satan likes it. But if you edge the bell, Satan doesn't like that. Either way, you have to do something with the bell icon. All right. Okay. We're gonna cause a little problem. All right, guys. Leave a comment, subscribe, share the video, tell your friends and enemies. Tell your friends and enemies to subscribe to our channel. And yeah, see you in 3 days, right? For our new stream.
Yes.
All right. Bye, guys. Bye.
Bye.